Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part, where we are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week, Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts, coming to you about 7 minutes late here today. John Sapanaro out in North Hollywood, California. We talked about it last week. Matt Ibby Ibanez on a much-deserved vacation this week, so I am flying solo. I did try to get a guest host in here. Actually tried in more ways than one with some familiar faces. People who have been guests on the show before. People who, commenters like yourselves, have enjoyed as guests before. Unfortunately, I struck out. I struck out across the board. People were booked. People were busy. And that's just how it goes sometimes. So it'll be just me, John Sapanaro, rocking with all of you in the comments, and there is plenty to discuss. As always, the Mets giving us, let's just say, a lot to deal with, right? So before we get into the conversation here, let's do a quick roll call. We got 37 eyes on us right now. I'm sure that number will continue to increase as we go along. Mr. Nobody, John Bobbio, we got Brad in the house. We have Clink. We have Jeff Cohen. We have Armand. We have Carlos Ortiz. We have David Partlow, Ethan KL in the house. And we've got Mike Laverty. No, I'm out. No, don't do me like that, Mike. We got Keith, the Media Goon Blacknick, saying, Sap, I could jump in. Actually, might have you on. Might shoot something over your way coming up in a little bit, Keith. We'll see if we can get the Media Goon here. We talk a little bit about the QBC coming up and the Mets stuff, of course, but the QBC also coming up in just a few short weeks. But look, guys, I think this comment here from John sums it up. Complaint over first base coach leaving. My God. We found out today, Antoine Richardson and Jeremy Hefner, who nobody cares about, leaving because he had a bad year, right? But Antoine Richardson, Jeremy Hefner going to the Atlanta Braves, staying in the division, going to a division rival in the same roles. And this is the key part that's going to aggravate a lot of Mets fans, and I've been on Mets Twitter today, in the same roles that they held with the Mets. No one's going to care about Jeremy Hefner. A few people do. I know he still has his fans, people that think he got a raw deal. And I know Jeremy Hefner did some good here, but it's my stance, and it always has been, that Jeremy Hefner's tenure with the Mets is a mixed bag at best. Everybody he deserves credit for, fine. People he fixed and people he got right, sure. But there's still plenty of people that never got better or got worse or what have you under Jeremy Hefner. So you take the good with the bad. He gets credit for fixing guys. He gets credit for getting the best out of guys. but he also presided over one of the worst pitching staffs I've ever watched. So he gets, credit, or he gets the blame where that's concerned too. We'll put him aside for a moment. We'll talk about Antoine Richardson. Antoine Richardson had a great season as a first base coach, base running coordinator. He was also basically the outfield defense coach, but we lose that a little bit, right? Because, I don't know. Is anybody going to talk about the Mets outfield defense being stellar? Their defense was horrendous as a team. I know David Stearns tried to put an emphasis on run prevention. Didn't really work out that way. Mets had to cobble together center field. Nimmo was out there all year. Soto was out there all year. You kind of take what you get from both of those spots. Center field was an abject disaster, from Jose Siri being unplayable to Cedric Mullins coming over here and being a joke to Jeff McNeil filling in admirably, but should never be playing center field as a 33-year-old playing center field for the first time since college. And then you have Tyrone Taylor, who, honestly, for the most part, just didn't hit enough to be the elite glove out there every day that he is. But taking all of that aside, I can't get mad. I can't get mad about Antoine Richardson being gone. You guys, I can't. I tweeted out something and I stand by what I'm saying. Did I want him to stay? Yes. He did a great job. He should have stayed. But I can't lose sleep over a first base coach departing the team on November 5th. Do I think it makes the Mets look bad? I think it's being positioned to make the Mets look bad. I think it's being crafted to make the Mets look bad. But I don't know that the Mets look bad for not retaining a first base coach. I don't know that that's where I want to be at the start of the offseason. We talked last week. We came back a couple weeks earlier than we normally would. Typically, we take off for when the Mets season ends to when the offseason starts. But because the Mets season came apart the way that it did, Ibby and I decided to come back basically 2 weeks early. So we're talking last week before the offseason even has started. While the World Series is still going on, we're talking about a first base coach. Now here we are, fast forward a week. It's November 5th. World Series ended a few days ago. Dodgers win again, 2 in a row, back-to-back champs. Congratulations, whatever. And we want to start the offseason conversation in earnest. And I don't think I want to talk about a first base coach, whether or not he's here or not here. So, yeah, honestly, GSD, I'm kind of with you. First base coach will be forgotten about next week. It's all for engagement. I think that's what I mean when I say that this has been positioned to make the Mets look bad. That's something that I can't. Look, I wanted him back, right? Armand, I'll pull up your comment. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. Yeah. Again, the guy had a really good year. If the guy was back, everybody would be happy. But I can't sit here and lament the Mets for, I don't know, use the word value, right? That's the Puma report. That's the Martino report. Will Salmon also had it where it's I can't fault the Mets for valuing a guy differently. I don't know. Okay. I don't know, man. I can't get worked up about it. And I joked online that I was going to bring whiskey to the show if I had to talk about it. I didn't. I just brought water. But I just think there's no reason to get worked up. Is it a bummer? In a way, it's a bummer. But I'm going to go back to this comment from GSD. It'll be forgotten about next week. Maybe not next week, but it'll be forgotten about. Jeff Cohen saying, truth, coaches move on all the time. Let's talk about baseball. Like, the guy did some really good things here, and he deserves praise for it. And whatever, it came out right before I went live, maybe about 30 minutes before, that value, the term value was directly about money and the benefits attached to that. Last week, Ibby and I talked about this. We said that maybe he felt like it was a bit of a, sort of glass ceiling situation with the Mets. We said, look, if he goes somewhere and he takes a bench coach job or something different from a first base position, that's why he didn't come back. But we also cautioned everybody saying, you know what? If he takes a first base job, just be prepared, because maybe he just sees movement where he doesn't see movement here. Now, it seems like that's been refuted a bit, but I don't know, because I'm not in the negotiations. So I don't know if that's not part of it. Like, I don't know if certain things tied to the dollars also tied to the role. And again, I'm not just sitting here glazing the Mets, and I'm not just sitting here talking about David Stearns being the best at this, but I don't know, neither do any of you, because we're not in the negotiations. We don't know where this thing went. And it seems like Richardson, he said all the right things, how he wanted to come back, and, it's not that he didn't have interest in the Mets. So I don't know, but I just don't think it's the thing to get upset about. Like, I see people saying, and some of it is tongue in cheek. I understand that Twitter is not the place for sarcasm. Twitter is not the place for certain kinds of jokes. It's not the place for hyperbole, but I see people like, this is a bad look for Stearns. Like, I see people like flipping out, like, oh, I'm getting irrationally angry about this, but it's my right. Like, then don't do it. Then just don't. I think this is what it comes down to for me. And then we'll move on, I promise. Be honest with me in the comments here when I say this. Do any of you think that the Mets' success in 2026 is going to hinge upon a first base coach? Because I don't think that's going to make a difference. I think they need Juan Soto to do what he did in his first year here, and that is be a finalist for the NL MVP. I think they need another great year out of Lindor, and he's given you a lot of those recently. I think they need another, big year out of Brandon Nimmo. Some of his numbers a little hollow. I think they need that, though. And they need Brandon Nimmo to be an offensive force. They need to figure out first base. They bring back Alonso. They need Alonso to bring Alonso to be Alonso. If they don't bring him back, they go in a different direction. They need to make up for that, whatever. They need some of the younger guys to take a step forward. Is Beatty the guy that we saw him grow into? Or is he the guy for the first, 3 years of his career that couldn't stay in the lineup? Is Vientos the 2024 Vientos, the 2025 Vientos, somewhere in between? What's Alvarez going to be? Where are they going to find an ace? Can some of the pitchers that they're not going to get rid of, right? Like, we could talk about, Peterson might be on the trading block, or maybe you could trade Kodai Senga or whatever. Well, okay, fine. Whether they do that or not, Clay Holmes is going to be here. So does he build off of what he did last year? They're not going to be able to trade Sean Manaea. So can he rebound once his elbow gets cleaned up and blah, blah, blah? Like, are they going to bring back Edwin Díaz? Those are the questions that we need to talk about today, next week, the week after. I really don't think anybody's going to care about Antoine Richardson and whether or not he's back. So I don't know. I just think it's not a worthwhile thing to get hung up on. I'm talking about it because we have to. It's a Mets show, and it just happened today, and I know you guys want to talk about it, but shout out Mr. Nobody. Hoodie John is preaching. Ibby disagrees, though. Ibby says, shout out Ibby, can't be here, but he's here. No, I'm just messing with you. I know the deal. I've done it before too, where you can hop on in the comments. Totally different game. Ibby, my co-host, saying, "Hey, lose the hoodie. We're professionals." I had to go dark. I'm doing my Palpatine. Mr. Nobody also saying it's bad fundies to not click the like button immediately. Said that at the top of the show. Appreciate that. Hit the like button if you haven't already. But I mean, that's what it is. I like Ibby saying it. If the Mets' success is based off of first base coach, this is an awful team. 100%. Game for WAR. No one should care about a first base coach. The hitting coach is different because the young hitters feel like they have to listen to him, risk being labeled uncoachable or difficult by him. That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I don't know if it makes that big of a deal. I teased it. I'll bring the comment up from Keith Blacknick, the media goon himself. Somehow Sap Licata has returned. The aforementioned Keith Blacknick, the man behind the scenes at the QBC, graciously said he would jump on the show. So I'm going to welcome him onto the show. Keith, how you doing, man?
What's up, Sap? How's everything?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I can't complain. Excited for the QBC coming up in, I guess it's a little over a month. It's like 4.5 weeks away or whatever.
Yep. Saturday, December 13th. I'm ready. I'm exhausted already, but I'm ready.
I'm ready too. I mean, look, and it's always great to come back to New York. It's kind of great sometimes to come back to New York in the wintertime too, even though I prefer the warm weather here in Southern California. It is nice to get a little bit of that, like toe into the winter and then come back over here. But we'll talk about the QBC. Keith, I know you backstage during a lot of what I was saying. I don't even want to lead you in a direction. I will ask you a more specific question after as a follow-up. Just when you are on Twitter today or however you see the news that Antoine Richardson is going to the Braves to be their first base coach, what is your initial reaction?
Who cares? I mean, seriously, when's the last time a first base coach made a real impact on a team besides sending somebody to second or a third base coach sending somebody to home? I know there's a little minutia that they do in the field and on the benches and they're paying attention, but does it really impact the game?
No, I mean, you could argue if you want to play devil's advocate or whatever, that the other stuff that he at least had a hand in, that's Richardson, which was some of the base running things and the success the Mets had at stealing second base specifically, that is the biggest contribution that a first base coach has made to a team in recent memory, which makes you say okay, well, the Mets have to do everything to keep that guy. But Keith, I don't know, is Juan Soto, well, two things. So Soto had a tremendous amount of success with it specifically. Is he going to forget everything that Antoine Richardson told him? And also, now teams are wise to it. So if Richardson came back, who's to say that the Mets would have the same strategy or the same success if they employed that strategy?
All right. And the other thing is, who knows if the players are going to be healthy enough to run? Who knows what players they're going to have in the field? Are they going to be able to do the same kind of stuff that they did last year? And you always have to evolve. The team overall, yeah, they had some great base running, but the team as a whole just fell apart. So there has to be a new mindset with the coaches, a new mindset with the manager. You gotta evolve what this team was. It did great, and then it fell apart. So then where do you build on from? The greatness, or do you build on from the falling apart? I think falling apart, you got to restart the whole team, the whole coaching staff. You can't get rid of the manager because the Mets get rid of too many managers too quickly. And I would just say that this is the last chance for people on the bench, though.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I mean, I talked about it on this show. I definitely in the last episode when we kind of eulogized the season. And probably once or twice since, because it hasn't been as hot of a topic since we've returned. But yeah, I think there were certain things that Mendoza did down the stretch that I called on this show and on Twitter a fireable offense. And I think he had a bad year. But I think that everything you just said. The Mets can't continue to turn over managers and front office personnel. I mean, since Steve Cohen bought the team, and I know some of this is circumstance, but since Cohen bought the team, they've had Sandy Alderson, Jared Porter, Zach Scott, Billy Epler, and finally David Stearns running the show. That's too many people. That's too many cooks. Then you look at just the managers that they've gone through, and Carlos Mendoza is the only manager in this stretch to make it to a third season. And to your point, you can't keep turning over guys like that. You need to have some continuity. So look, off of one, leave Stearns out of it for a second, off of one bad year last year and one good year, 2024, for Carlos Mendoza, where the Mets have his rights. He's already signed for 2026. They also have a club option for him for 2027 that they control. There was no reason to cut bait with him. You have to keep some kind of continuity. You have to. Now, purging all of the other coaches, I have no issue with, because the hitting was bad at times. And Chavez was here for a long time, and he survived several regimes. The pitching was abysmal, and Jeremy Hefner survived several regimes. Desi Druschel, they brought him in from the Yankees. He was lauded. I thought it was a good move. But, listen, that guy wasn't going to get the pitching coach job after being second in command over one of the worst staffs in baseball. So letting a lot of these guys go, and I think injecting some young blood, whether it's, guys like Gibbons stepping away and guys like Sherlock retiring, you need the Kai Correas. I know people don't want to hear words like analytics. They think it's dirty, but it's like you need some of this young blood and some of these new folks to come in. And I do think the one mistake the Mets made, and I understand why, because 2024 was such a good season, but when David Stearns comes in and he brings in Carlos Mendoza, I know that baseball is not the NFL and you don't need to pick all of your own coaches, but I would like to see the guys pick their own coaches. I think it matters, maybe not as much as it does in the NFL, but I think it's a factor. And so I'm happy to see Stearns and or Mendoza or whatever, put their stamp on all of these guys. The Mets didn't win with Buck Showalter. The Mets didn't win with Luis Rojas. The Mets didn't win with Billy Epler or Zach Scott or any of these people. So why are we holding on so tightly to these guys? Like, oh my God, we can't let them go. And in fairness, the Mets didn't win last year with Antoine Richardson or whoever else. So I don't think we need to worry about like these guys being here or not. I really don't.
No, you got to figure out what's going to be the best for the team. What you got to figure out the personnel you have on as players on the team and who's going to work with them well. Because what happens if the coaches don't get along with a Soto or a Lindor or an Alonso or a Nimmo, and like they're totally different philosophies. They try to change up the hitting, or they try to change up the pitching, and it ends up wrecking the player.
Yeah. I'll jump back into the comments really quick. Couple things. Jeff Cohen saying QBC, the best part of the offseason. Right before I was saying that he will be there. So there you go. Looking forward to seeing Jeff. Armand saying the GM meetings are next week, the 10th through the 13th. That is worth noting because GM meetings used to be super quiet. It was always gearing up for the winter meetings. But we've seen over the last 5-6 years or so, not only do sometimes deals happen during the GM meetings, trades, some free agent signings, but a lot of times groundwork is laid where then you might see a flurry of movement right after those meetings are over and before the winter meeting. So that it's moved from a nothing thing to something that we should, as baseball fans, be a bit more aware of. Carlos Ortiz saying the winter reminds you why you moved to California, about my comment about going back to New York in December. That might be true. That might be true. We got Clink saying, I care most about the Mets players who will apply the knowledge Richardson imparted to them this season for the remainder of their careers. If they can't do that, then they're not smart players. Certainly one way of looking at it, kind of what I was alluding to before. And Cindy saying, I'll give credit where credit is due. He deserves it. But the only reason why we're excited about Richardson was because the 2025 team sucked, in all caps. All that base stealing, and we still lost. Keith, I feel like this is a bit of an obvious question to answer, but I will pose it to you anyway. Do you think that's part of the reason? Like, in other words, it's not just that the Mets had success in an area and it's attributed to the coach. It's that the Mets had success in an area attributed to a coach and everything else was bad. So that's why. Like, I think if the Mets had the same season with Antoine Richardson and they win the World Series and he leaves, I don't think the reaction is this bad. I think the reaction is worse because it's magnified because I think Sydney makes a great point where it's just like everything else was so bad. People are like, oh, come on, you're getting rid of the one good thing we had, which I think is accurate, but also a foolish way to think if you're in the camp about Antoine Richardson leaving.
Things are always going to change. As long as you keep, like I said, with the evolution of stuff, as long as you keep learning from the thing before, you should be fine. So if, like, I forgot which commenter just said it, but whoever it was that said, yeah, if they can't figure out what they did this season and bring it to the next season as players, they're stupid. It's not that they're stupid, but does that make them lazy? Does that make them not good ball players? They're professionals for a reason. So they should be able to adapt and learn and take different pieces of different philosophies and make it theirs.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Here's the counterpoint that a lot of people have. I've seen this a lot. I've seen some form of this sentiment a lot. And it's, excuse me, that's the second half of the comment. Here we go. Radiant says, the idea of us losing the first base coach isn't necessarily the issue for me. It's further proof that when it comes to Stearns, I don't trust him at all. It's the fact that he's incapable of spending Cohen's money. He's been one of the most atrocious GMs when it comes to spending money on players. I don't want to hear anything from the fans about Soto and Alonso because we all know who did that, alluding to the fact that it was Cohen who stepped in. Keith, where do you and I have talked, you and I talk all the time. We've talked about Stearns before at games, over text, never really on this show because usually when we have you on, we're a little bit more centric on the QBC. Where is your faith in David Stearns right now as opposed to where it was when he got hired? Has it changed? Has it gotten lesser? Where's your viewpoint on Stearns?
It hasn't really changed, but think about it. He went from like not really a small market team, but a mid-market team that he had built up through the minors and through trades, and then they would sign a big player every now and then. He's never dealt with this money before. It's also a learning curve for him. So if he even didn't know how to spend this money and how to allocate it right, and to see which people he's brought into the organization to help him evaluate players, shouldn't he have a learning curve too? I'm like, I know he's a GM and he's been a GM for a while, but shouldn't he have a little bit of a learning curve of dealing with a big market team and all the stuff that comes with being a GM of a big market team? And who knows what's going on behind the scenes too with Steve Cohen going, hey, I want this guy no matter what. Even though it might have been Soto and Alonso, maybe he wanted a pitcher. Maybe he wanted this. Hey, don't worry about those pitchers. We'll be able to get it. And then also Cohen, a couple of years ago with Yamamoto, he never called us. So we never went after him.
Right.
So nobody really knows what goes on behind the scenes. Like I have inklings, I hear things, but even the stuff I get is not 100% accurate all the time.
Well, and here's the other part of it. Like Mr. Nobody, and I know it's a little tongue in cheek where it's like we went from splurging Epler to stingy Stearns. Where's the middle ground? But I use that as the counterpoint to what Radiant is saying, simply because you also don't know where the line in the sand is. Like Cohen has more money than anybody in baseball. He can spend. I'm an advocate of spending. I say go get everybody. I think what the Dodgers is doing is fine. I don't care. If you have the money, spend the money, build a team. I really don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think there should be a salary cap. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of that. But the point is, sometimes, though, from a team building perspective, if you're a guy like Cohen and you're like, Stearns comes to you and he says, look, man, we've got Starling Marte. He's on the books. We can't get rid of him, man. Like, it's not about the money, but it's like, it's clogging up our roster. Now, I know Marte's off the books now. His contract is up. But then you look at like, man, we got Jeff McNeil. And Jeff McNeil is a useful player. Yeah, but I think the Mets have outlived Jeff McNeil's usefulness on this roster. I think the Mets would be better served if they could get Jeff McNeil off the roster and open up areas for other players, whether it's young players, whether it's a different player that they want to pay to bring in. So, and these are deals that other GMs gave out, not David Stearns. So I think sometimes when you look at it, it's not from a penny pinching standpoint. It's a different philosophy as it relates to, okay, we have some bad money on the books. And David Stearns doesn't like bad money on the books. Now, you could say that that's a hindrance for him as a big market GM because sometimes you have to swallow bad money. Fine. I don't think he's deep enough into his tenure to say that it's actually hindering him. I also don't think that the salary that a first base coach in this case is getting has anything to do. Like, if the Mets disagreed on the value of the deal, that doesn't affect their payroll. It doesn't affect their luxury tax. It's a coach. It has nothing to do with it. So I think saying it's like he can't handle it is foolhardy. And again, the example that I always go to on this situation is right here in Los Angeles. Andrew Friedman is the president of baseball operations for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Where did he come from? The Tampa Bay Rays. What is his background? Analytics. What is his background? Small market. What is his background? Not spending money. Is there any problem? Do you see any problem with the Dodgers spending money? Now, I understand that Stearns is not Friedman. They're two different people. But I think Stearns has only had a small market job prior to this one. And it's been 2 years. Let's let it unfold. I also think it's a little unfair when the guy is the president of baseball ops to say, oh, Soto doesn't count. Alonso doesn't count. Do I think that those are the kinds of deals, especially Soto, that Cohen got involved in? Yes, Keith, of course I do. Because you're going to give out a salary of that magnitude. You have to have full, not only blessing, but support and bringing the owner in. And, he's got to meet with the player and the family and all the stuff that the Mets did. That's how you get a player like that. That's how you attract them. But it doesn't mean that Stearns didn't want Soto. Who wouldn't want Soto? So I think that Cohen plays a part? Of course he does. The Mets don't get Juan Soto without Steve Cohen flying the jet out, bringing his family in, saying, I'll give you $750 million. Of course they don't get him. But you can't just be like, oh, and Stearns doesn't count, irrelevant. I think all of that's unfair. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I know Ibby agrees with me. I don't know how you feel on that, where it's like you have to give the person who is doing the deal some credit. You have to.
I mean, the other thing is, though, whenever you start a new job, how long does it take you to get into actually feeling comfortable doing what you're doing with the organization? That you don't know where you got to worry about treading and stepping on toes. Also, you don't want to step on Steve Cohen's toes. How fast can you get fired then? Like, good example is I got onto my co-op board this year. The first couple months, I was very tentative. I wanted to see what was going on. I had to learn what was going on. I had to look at the budgets. I had to see how this place was run first. Now I'm more vocal. Of course, I've also lived here for 30 years, but I'm more vocal. I'm looking around, seeing what I can do, what my stamp could be, and what I could talk to the president of the co-op board about, who's basically my Steve Cohen at this point, where I'm more comfortable in my role now. So maybe now Stearns can be more comfortable in what he can spend, talk to his team of analytics guys that he's brought in. Maybe they didn't fit in right. Maybe he has to bring somebody else in that wasn't that wasn't used to being with these players and trying to figure out what the system is. This whole analytics department's only been a few years old here too, and that's been a turnover too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good real world example too of, it's obviously not on the same like magnitude, but I think that's a really good real world example that everybody can relate to, where it's like, yeah, you step into a new job or you step into a new role. And yeah, look, it's a little different with a guy like Stearns. He's obviously empowered. Cohen gives him the keys to the city, so to speak. But there is a feeling out process. There is a learning curve. There is growing pains, whatever you want to call it. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking Radiant to task here. Good commenter and being fair on both sides, because now saying, yes, he definitely has a learning curve. My concern, however, is how long. And I think just to answer that question simply, Radiant, I think we're getting into it now. We're getting into it after you're going into year 3. And more so than year 3, Keith, I think, because it's sometimes the number of years is irrelevant. It depends where a team is when you take over. I think first you have to allow Stearns to familiarize himself with the depth of the roster, who to keep, who to let go. And when you look at a lot of those pieces between last offseason and the trade deadline, he was very hesitant to let guys like Beatty or Vientos or Acuna or Mauricio go. And now it seems like there are certain people that, unless you're talking about a deal for Scooble, you're probably not going to let go of a Jet Williams or a Carson Benj or a Ryan Clifford or, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, whatever. But I think when you start to get into this season, I'm not saying that Stearns is on the hot seat. I don't think he is. I'm a fan of Stearns, so I'm not trying to push that narrative. But I think we're getting into the point where, all of the training wheels of the organization are off now. We have to see, because the Mets are a high payroll win now. You go out, you get Soto. I said this last week. The Dodgers got Ohtani and they said, you know what? Caution to the wind. Next 10 years, we'll be $1 billion over the luxury tax threshold. We'll try to win as many World Series as we can. With Ohtani, we'll pay the piper on the back end. Soto is not Ohtani. He's a different kind of player. I understand that, but he's in the same class as a hitter, one of the best hitters in the sport. You go out, you get that guy in the prime of his career. You kind of have to build around him and just go balls to the wall and try to win. So I think now it's fair to say that we're looking at Stearns and saying, okay, you had one really good year. The team had one really bad year. You should have enough time to put your stamp on this organization. And now I think we can start to really judge him moving forward. Do you think that's fair, or do you think I'm off base?
No, I think it's very fair. Also, the first year when with the OMG and everything, the Mets caught lightning in a bottle. They sucked the first half of the year. It drained us. He made good moves then, where he brought in the right players and the personalities fit. So everybody forgot about that last year. It's crazy. I know it's a whole, what have you done for me lately kind of society now. But you still have to give somebody a chance. So even like when if you're playing in the playoffs, you have 3 out of 5 games you have to win. So you go 2 and you go 2, and then you have the final game. So you're going to tell me he doesn't have a chance to win the series for himself as a GM. You just want to get rid of him. You just want to get rid of him right away. You got to give somebody a little bit of time. I'm not saying that he can't have his detractors and he can't have faults. He's not perfect, but we have one of the best GMs in the league. We're going to have to see what he can do this year. There's money that came off the books. There's different free agents. There's different trades. I think this year he'll make trades and not clutch onto prospects, because that's another thing that they were talking about, that they had to build up the farm system. Now, how do you build up a farm system? You have top-level prospects that you can move eventually. So maybe last year wasn't the year that they thought they were going to end up winning the World Series, no matter what they did, even with Soto, with Lindor, with Alonso. Maybe this is the year that they were planning on trying to make the better move for, with the free agents that are going to be out there and players that are nearing the end of their contracts that they can trade for, even as a rental or possibly signed to an extension.
Yeah, and I said that last week. That's what I'm looking for. Again, I am a Stearns fan. I'm a Stearns supporter. I'm not as down on him as some other people are right now. And part of that is because, again, you just have to maintain some continuity, guys. Understand that the Dodgers were not built overnight, and the Mets are trying to run to catch up to the Dodgers. Steve Cohen could have slow played this a bit more when he took over the team. Instead, he didn't. He went out, he got Lindor near immediately, gave him the deal immediately. Like, when you look at the way the Dodgers built up, the Dodgers went out and they acquired some guys. They put payroll on the books. They put some stars in, or quote unquote stars in their clubhouse and in their dugout. They go out, they trade for, the Carl Crawfords and the David Price and they do all these moves so they could be a competitive team. They could start to turn over from the taste of McCourt in the fan base's mouths. But it wasn't until they were more entrenched as like, okay, now we're ready to start to move. Then you see them make the Mookie Betts trade, which was the first of many. Then you see them go and add to that. Then you see Cohen comes in and he makes the Mookie Betts trade near immediately by going and getting Lindor. His strategy has been different. And I think he has a little bit more impatience in him, which is fine. But I think what happens is, as a fan base, we're impatient. I get it. It's been 40 years. I want to win a World Series too. It's hard to preach patience to Mets fans, and I get it. I'm a Mets fan too. I would like them to win. But Keith, I think the patience that you preach is not this like generic trust the process idea where, I know you're not a big football guy, but for me, I've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks about how, the Jets broke my fandom because for 15 years, there was no return on investment. For 15 years, they were an unwatchable product. And eventually I just got bored and I walked away. So yesterday is the NFL trade deadline, and the Jets go out and they trade 2 superstar players and they get a haul of picks in return. Now, are the Jets bad? Yeah, the Jets are bad. Did they maximize the return for their assets? They absolutely did. Do I think that the Jets are going to do anything with those assets? I don't, because they haven't developed a quarterback since the 60s. And they just had a draft a few years ago where they had 4 top-level picks. They hit on all 4 of them, and they were still a terrible football team who never won anything. And now one of those 4 guys has been traded away. The other one is languishing. Another guy is going to be gone when the season is over because he's a running back and they're not going to re-sign him. So trying to preach patience to Jets fans right now is insane. Trying to preach patience to Mets fans while it has been 40 years since they've won a World Series, when you look at, well, it's only still been, 5 years since Cohen's owned the team? It's only still been 3 years since David Stearns has taken over. This is only year 2 of Juan Soto. Their farm system is in a better shape than it's been in decades. Their major league roster is in a better shape than it has been in a long time, simply because, if nothing else, Juan Soto. When was the last time they had a player the caliber of Juan Soto? So when you start to look at plus the Mets have all the money in the world that they can spend if they decide they want to spend it. So when you look at prospect capital, position players or prospects able to come up and play for your team or get traded in the right deals, and you look at somebody who has all the money that they could spend, and the Mets have they have a good roster to start. When you look at what they have, to me, it's an easier idea to preach patience to Mets fans. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the Mets are in better shape than they have been in a very long time. And I don't think it's disputable. I really don't. All the times the Mets have succeeded, 2000, it was in spite of themselves. 2006, it was in spite of themselves, and they still didn't even get to the World Series. 2015, we had to beg and plead and drag them to go get people at the deadline. So I don't know, man. I think it's really easy to just look at this team and say, yeah, what did last year suck? It sucked. Did it leave a terrible taste in our mouth? It did. Do we want them to win? Of course we do. But you have to step back for a moment, look at the big picture, and realize that they're in a better place than they have been in 30 some odd years. I don't think that's ridiculous to say. You could disagree with me, but I don't think that's a ridiculous sentiment.
The best thing for the Jets to do is to get new ownership, and that would help
Bingo.
them out. But once that happened, I think that would help reset that franchise, because the only organization I feel is that's worse than the Mets with the old Wilpons ownership is the Jets with the ownership now.
Yeah, that's spot on. As somebody who was a fan of both of these, and I'm still a Jets fan. I'm not a keyed in Jets fan. It's exactly right. Joe DeMayo, QBC. Joe DeMayo also saying, I turn this on and I see Keith instead of Ibby. This is a good one from Armand. John, remember when Cohen had to promise the other owners that he wouldn't spend like a drunken sailor in his first year? That's why he traded and extended Lindor. Like it traded for and extended Lindor. Like it's also part of it. Like Cohen was brought in, and it was like, well, you have to take Sandy Alderson because he's measured. It's like, guys, we're finally through that. We're finally through all of this. I just don't think that we don't need to concern ourselves with the wrong things. Ultimately, we all want to win. I hear you, Rosie, when you say, I'm tired of the collapses. But again, if we're being honest, all of us being honest, 2024 was a flawed team. And some of that's on Stearns. Absolutely. And he'll say it's all on him because he's the president of baseball ops. But Keith, again, he inherited a lot of this roster. So I think he made moves on the margins to try to position himself to make what was already an established roster better. But you can't say he just improved on the margins, because again, they went out and got Juan Soto. That raises the ceiling of the whole team. So I don't know. I think they're in a very good spot. I understand the frustration. I just don't think the ire is set in the right place. Let's go into the break. When we come out, we'll talk some QBC, but we're also going to talk about the other news surrounding the Mets. No surprises. Diaz and Alonso opt out. Minter and Montas opt in. Some of that's good. Some of that's bad. Some of it Mets fans don't want to hear anything about, but we will head into the break. We'll be right back. Keith Blacknick, the media goon, is here with us until Mets do its part. It's Keith Blacknick. It's John Sapanaro, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. We'll be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. John Sapanaro, and pinch hitting, we have Keith Blacknick, the media goon himself, for my usual co-host, my regular co-host, my buddy, Matt Ibby Ibanez, who is enjoying his vacation with his family. He'll be back next week. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. In the offseason is when we like to bring in a lot of guests and talk off season and hot stove and all that fun stuff. And even some nonsense along the way too, because there's not actual games to react to and to talk about. Before we get back into the conversation, remember our friends over at Independent Safe still rocking with us. They've been rocking with us damn near since the beginning, and they're offering free shipping on all orders over $99. And spoiler alert, guys, if you buy a safe, it's gonna cost you more than $99. If you check out the website, independentsafes.com, they have a tremendous selection, but you'll see quickly that everything's over $100. But that is actually good news, because you're going to want free shipping when you buy something as heavy as a safe. So check out Independent Safes. Let them know that we sent you. over here at Tilt Mets Do Us Part. And of course, we have our segment, Throw Away the Key. Keith, normally I kick this over to Ibby first, but I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'll do mine first. I know you're in the comments a lot. You've been on the show before. You know what this segment is about. So if you want to pitch in with yours after I'm done, take it away. You can do that. Think about it now. I am going to put the Antoine Richardson saga in the safe. And obviously it's easy to do that now because he's on another team and we can look in the rearview mirror. But I don't want to ever have a conversation like the one we had to open the show about a first base coach again. I just can't let my emotions get that hot in 2025 in November when I want to talk about the baseball offseason. I can't concern myself with a first base coach, a catching instructor, a bullpen coordinator. I can't. They are all positions that matter. They matter more to the people in them than they should matter to anybody who is watching baseball. So I just want to put anything like this in the safe, lock it up, throw away the key. Do you have anything that you want to put in the safe and get out of here?
Hefner and Chavez. I think it was time for them. It was time for them to move on. They were like the roaches that would be around at the end of the world. No matter what happened, they just stuck around. I felt like Chavez didn't really contribute to the team. How he had to, how he bounced back and forth between the bench coach back to the hitting coach. Hefner was very 50-50. When he did strike and he hit a pitcher, they did well. But there was a lot of pitchers that just didn't do well with him too. I feel like a lot of the inning management was mishandled this year. So let's just throw them into the safe, lock it away, take the safe out to Long Island Sound, and then just drop it into the water.
I'm with you on that. I think you were getting set up. I don't know if you were listening to the show right before you came on. I think it was before you were backstage. But it's something I've said about Hefner. I think Hefner did some good things here, but I think his career here as pitching coach is very much 50-50. There are, I mean, numbers wise, there are more misses than hits because that's how it's going to be for any coach. But I think when you look at the quality of the misses and hits, it's 50-50 at best. There's a lot of guys he helped. There's a lot of guys that he did not. So, for these guys, Chavez included, to survive as many regimes as they did, it is nice to move on from both of those people, throw away the key. And now that Hefner has gotten another job somewhere else, I think we could fully turn the page on the Mets coaching staff conversation, with these departing guys, because it's just time to move on. It just is what it is. You guys are watching Tilt Mets Do Us Part. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. Of course, we have Keith Blacknick, the media goon, pinch hitting for Matt Ibby Ibanez here this week. I'm John Sapanaro. We are live every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time or thereabouts. We usually go for about an hour, sometimes 2 hours. It depends how the conversation is rocking. If you missed any of the show, you can go back on the same YouTube channel that is appropriately called Tilt Mets Do Us Part, and you can watch the show in its entirety once we are done with the live broadcast. You can also listen wherever you get your podcast. The episodes drop a few hours after we're done with the live show, but that's Amazon Music, it's Apple Podcasts, it's Spotify, or on Substack. You can follow us across social media at Till Mets Do Us Part. Keith, let's get back into the conversation really quickly. Let's talk about the easy ones first, and then the frustrating ones. So the Mets had 2 players opt in, 2 players opt out. We'll talk about AJ Minter first. Looked really good for the Mets to start the season, has lat surgery, misses the year. This is coming off of a year where he missed a bunch of time with a hip injury. Mets give him the 1-year deal with a 2nd-year option. Obviously, he exercises the option. It was a lost season for him. But I think when you look at what he can contribute and the kind of pitcher he is, I don't think anybody's going to be mad that he opts into the deal. Seemed like a no-brainer for him, but I think Met fans should be excited to see AJ Minter returning to the team probably somewhere in May or something, definitely in the first half of the season. So I think Met fans should be happy about it.
Yeah, I have no problem with Minter opting in. I really wanted to see what he could do after like trying to get healthy, and I'm just so tired of all these like lat injuries, these oblique injuries. Can we start getting these players to stop working out so much? I feel like they're too tight, and like I'm probably crazy about that, but I just feel like they need to kind of go back to maybe just doing yoga instead of trying to work out too hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough to agree or disagree, honestly. Like, I know it's a conversation you and I have had before, and it's a conversation I've had with other baseball fans. And I think, everybody is different, right? And so you look at some of these guys and you're like, yeah, I don't think you need to be in the gym to where you look like, a Greek statue. I don't think you need to have that physique to play baseball. I think we all kind of understand that. But you look at a guy like AJ Minter and he doesn't have that kind of physique anyways, kind of a thicker guy. So I don't know how to me, what you're saying, while there's probably some validity to it, to me, it's the velocity equals Tommy John surgery argument where it's like, yeah, probably somewhere in there's like guys don't learn to pitch and they blow their arm out chasing velocity. But some guys throw 100 miles an hour and they don't have Tommy John surgery for their entire career, or they don't have it till they're, 37 years old or whatever. So I don't know. I think there's something to it, but I think every body type is different, and guys maybe need to, the critique I would say is, maybe just don't fall in line. Like, listen to your own body. And if your own body is telling you like, you're working out too hard, you're fatigued, maybe then you need to switch up your regimen or whatever. Joe DeMeo saying Keith wants fat Mets. Stevie Mack, don't be like Syndergaard. That was actually the guy that I had in mind. He was the person that I was alluding to when I said, chiseled like a Greek statue. Noah Syndergaard was kind of ripped for nothing. Let's talk about the one that's going to get under a lot of people's skin. Conversely, I should say, by the way, the Mets also had an option. They had a team option on Brooks Raley, which they did pick up. So all of a sudden, the bullpen really, I know you still have to figure out Diaz, but when you look at AJ Minter and Brooks Raley in the 2026 bullpen, that's two high leverage lefties you can rely on. So while they need to overhaul that bullpen, they have two guys going in that are probably better than any two guys they had last year, considering Raley and Minter were not on the team at the same time. Cindy saying no shock with the opt-outs or the opt-ins. Keith, this is the one that's going to get under people's skin. Armand saying from the last segment, lock up Montas. Emphasis on ass, and his $17 million option. Well, fuck him. Look, Montas obviously lost season, terrible season. He has Tommy John surgery. He's going to miss the whole year, but the Mets are going to pay him $17 million to miss the season. It's a no-brainer for him to opt into that contract, but look, we're talking about David Stearns. I think it's pretty clear this is the worst signing that David Stearns has made as the Mets GM. And it might be the worst signing David Stearns has made in his career. So it's not shocking, but it does suck that the Mets have to pay $17 million for a guy to not play when he basically didn't play last year. And when he did play, he was terrible.
Well, the good thing about it is they have insurance. So I don't know how much insurance is picking up off of it. So, you knew what you're getting. So, I mean, they have the money. It sucks, but they have the money. And Montas lucked out. He got hurt, and he's making money just to sit at home.
Yeah, look, I don't want to spend any time on a guy like him because, again, here's a guy who, when the Mets made the deal, we all kind of scratched our heads. I understand from one perspective why they did. They wanted a stuff upgrade over guys like Quintana, and there's no doubt Montas has better stuff. Throws harder, better breaking stuff, doesn't have to be as perfect, to get guys out, things like that. But to jump the market the way they did, to give him the 1 year plus 1 year deal, okay. The 17 million, like for 1 year, I don't have a huge issue with. That's basically what he made the year before that. I think he got like a $600,000 raise. That's the going rate for mediocre pitchers. But it was a bad deal. He came into spring training out of shape. He got hurt. He was terrible on rehab. He came back. He was largely terrible with the Mets. He gets hurt again, and he's not going to pitch. So, they have the money to eat the contract. It sucks that they have to, but so it goes. If we move on and we talk about the two opt-outs, I think the easier one to talk about is probably Diaz. I mean, look, Keith, I know you and I differ a little bit on Pete, but whether they retain Diaz and Pete or not, they have to find a way to replace what both of those players offer to them. You're talking about a starting first baseman who plays 160 games plus a year, who hits 30 home runs and 100 RBI without even blinking. And then you're talking about a closer, the likes of which the Mets don't really have an in-house solution for. So if we just take them one at a time, if they don't retain either one of these guys, they have to replace them, and that will not be easy. So I think both guys made sense for them to opt out and get more money. Last time Diaz opted out, he had his deal sewn up with the Mets, or last time he was a free agent. He had his deal sewn up with the Mets before he was fully a free agent, during the 5-day exclusive window after the World Series. This one seems like it's going to drag on a bit longer than that. But what is your opinion on Edwin Díaz coming back to the Mets? Is it they must bring him back at the right price? Do you think he does come back? What's your thoughts on Díaz? We'll save Pete for next.
With Díaz, I think that the Mets, I would like for Díaz to come back. Do I have to have him back? I don't have to have any player really back. Mm-hmm. But if he's back, he's back. I'd prefer him because you know what you got. I would give him a front-loaded deal. I wouldn't give him a long deal. I would give him a front-loaded deal because of the age, the way relievers are, the way closers are. Just get what you can get out of him for the next 2 or 3 years. Just pay him. Pay him up front.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, like the money that he signed initially, and Armand, I know you can pull up the exact contract that he signed with the Mets. It was like 5 years, whatever it was, 100 million, something like that. I think he opts out with 2 years left, and one of the prevailing thoughts I've seen online from a lot of places, and obviously Diaz would have to agree to this, is basically he opts out with 2 years left on the deal. The AAV that he had is still tops for closers. So if you just give him a 4-year deal at the same dollar amount, that might be enough to keep him on the team. And that's not exactly front loading it the way that you're saying, but considering if he opts in, you have him for 2 more years anyway on that same dollar amount. Would you do that? In other words, would you just say right now, hey, you know what? We'll give you the same deal that you were on. We're basically just tacking on 2 years to it. So the deal that he had signed was 5 years, 102 million. Thank you for pulling that up, Armand. Would you give him just 2 years at that same AAV? If that just got it done. 4 years, excuse me, at that same AAV.
I would give him maybe 2 years with a 3rd-year option.
Okay.
And just a little bit more with the annual salary.
I mean, that's preferable for sure, because you want to have the flexibility if, he falls off a cliff, which relief pitchers can do. But I don't think that the 4 years, for me, if that was the stumbling, like for me, if I'm the Mets, if I'm David Stearns and I offer him, let's say the deal you just said, like, hey, I'll give you the 21 million for the first 2 years, and then I'm going to give you an option for the 3rd year. Maybe it's a player option, and then maybe there's a 4th year that's a team option. You kind of like work it out that way. I think that would be the best case scenario. But I'm not gonna let a couple of years get in the way because I just don't think the Mets have a way to replace Diaz right now. There's a lot of comments here saying like Diaz is my number one priority. Between Pete and Diaz, it's number one. Henry saying that, and Cindy saying that. I there's no way for the Mets to replace Diaz on the open market. A lot of the big name closers that were available via trade were all traded at the deadline. They're likely not getting traded again. You know, the Padres are not giving up Mason Miller now. The Phillies are not giving up Duran. They're certainly not trading him to the Mets in division, right? Like a lot of these controllable assets are somewhere else. You know, Devin Williams is a free agent, but he didn't fare great in New York as a Yankee. Some ups, some downs. I think with Diaz, he's a known commodity. So for me, if I had to go to straight 4 years, I would do it. I don't think I would let it deter me just because I don't know where else they go. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think if you throw money at a situation, it tends to help out a little bit. So and it also makes him feel like if he does have the next couple of years free, then he's a free agent again, and he can make, you know, the last big contract for like a 2-year contract that's higher AAV. You know what? This is all beyond my my scope. So hopefully the Mets just pick him up. Whatever they give him, I'll be happy with. So as long as they get him.
This is the point I was making with Diaz. Odd Villain saying the closer position is not a trade you can make to replace as easily as, say, first base. And I think that's where my thought process goes. A lot of people want Pete back come hell or high water. I'm sure you're not one of them. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm not even one of them, and I'm a Pete fan. I think you can do some creative things in this market to replace Pete if you wanted to. Now, can you replace him straight up? Certainly not. You can't go out unless you're going to sign Kyle Schwarber, which I don't think is going to happen. You can't really say, oh, well, there's the bat. There's the guy who hits, 30, 40 home runs and drives in 100 or 120 or whatever. There's two guys that can do that on the market right now. It's Pete and it's Schwarber. So you're not going to replace him one for one, but I think you could find an interesting way to replace him. I think with Diaz, he's the only guy that pitches at the end of games that, like Ethan said, and Sydney echoes here, Diaz has proven he can pitch in New York. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, you need to stay on Diaz first. To me, he's the bigger priority too. I agree with a lot of the commenters. Joe DeMeo saying, if you're rational about every free agent, you'll finish third on every free agent, which is a quote from Dodgers GM Pobo, Andrew Friedman, which is true. Sometimes you got to make a deal that hurts a little bit. So let me ask you this about Pete. I know you like Pete just fine. You're not crazy about Pete. You talk to me a lot on this show, off this show about, hey, if Pete can go, basically. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's been your overall sentiment is it's fine. He's good. He's good enough, but you don't need to have him here. What do you think happens with Pete? Do you think Pete has played his last game as a Met? And then how is your feelings about that?
All right. So how's the temperature in California right now?
It's all right. It's probably like 70 something degrees outside.
Because I figured you might have thought it was like 35 because hell might have froze over. Because this year Pete actually turned me around a little bit.
Okay.
I saw that he matured. I heard stuff behind the scenes that he matured a little more. He actually finally got it, like with his teammates. I think that he actually extended himself out more to his teammates, and he became more of a teammate and a team player instead of being more about himself. Do I think that he had something to prove this year? Yeah, now he has something to prove again for a contract. I think you don't give him a huge contract again with years. Give him options, give him incentives, but give him a big annual salary. And I would go like 3-4 years, but tell him, hey, there's a good chance you might be a DH in 2 years.
I think he's come around to the DH conversation. I think he wants to be paid like a guy who's playing first. So in other words, I think if you like the deal that people keep saying, it's like, 5 years, 150, which is $30 million a year. I think if you pay $30 million a year for Pete Alonso at this stage, I think he'll be like, thank you for the contract. And then he'll DH. I think he was so adamant about not DHing before the contract because he doesn't want to hurt his value. He doesn't want to be just a DH. I also, while Pete has his deficiencies defensively, I don't think he's as bad defensively as people's like he's got soft hands and he's good around the bag with his footwork. So he saves a lot of throws from his infielders. And I think that's one of the most important things you could do defensively at first. Do I think eventually the Mets need to get more athletic and younger at first base? Absolutely. Do I think that needs to start tomorrow? Listen, if they sign him and they say you're going to split time at first base, I think that's totally fine. Totally fine. But I think you don't sign him and I don't think you have to sign him and automatically make him a DH. So I think there's some wiggle room in the first year or two of any deal that you give with him. I do like that you're saying some options. One thing that I heard on Locked On Mets, which is Ryan Finkelstein, and I give him credit for this because I haven't heard anybody say this exactly this way, but he was like, if he wouldn't get hung up on years with Alonso. So he's like, I put a 5-year 150 offer on the table. I think that's fair market value for Pete. Take it. If he takes it, that's great. And he's like, if Pete wants a little bit more in years, he's like, then I would start to talk to him about options, but creatively. So basically puts 5 years, 150, and Boris is like, look, we want more. It's like, okay, you can have a 6-year option, but one that vests automatically if you hit 30 home runs and play 150 games. Because that means that Pete Alonso is Pete Alonso in that 5th year. If he hits 30 home runs and plays 150 games, sure, have a 6th year. And I think starting to do stuff like that creatively with options is the path back. He also said you probably want to defer some money to change what Truman Quinn is bringing up is with taxes, Pete Alonso is a $60 million a year player if you pay him $30 million a year. So I think if you defer, say $10 million a year on that contract, it becomes a little bit more palatable. So I think both, I don't know if you listen to his show or watch his show, but I thought that was a really good perspective that he brought up that I haven't seen from a lot of other places. The deferred money and then like vesting options that are just like, hey, just go out and do what you do. You do what you do, you're going to get another year.
Yeah, if they're going to do any deferred money, any of these organizations, they better start doing it now because who knows what the CBA is going to look like.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree with that too. I think that because I don't think there'll ever be a salary floor because I don't think there's ever going to be a salary cap. And as much as I'd love to see a floor, I think the thing that's going to get either avoid the work stoppage, Keith, or going to get them to come back to work is what you're describing. I think it's going to be some kind of situation where they put a cap on deferrals. And I think they have to, because I don't know about you. I don't care that the Dodgers spend money. I don't care that they go out and get players that other places are undervaluing. You know, Mookie Betts wanted to stay in Boston. They didn't want to pay him. And Freddie Freeman wanted to stay with the Braves. And, you know, the Rays wouldn't keep Tyler Glasnow and they didn't keep Blake Snell and all these people. And the Angels fumbled the bag with Shohei Ohtani, like all this situation that if some of these teams just acted better, the Dodgers wouldn't be able to do what they've been doing. So I don't care about the money that they're spending on the high end, but I do think deferring, you know, whatever the percentage, 90% of Shohei Ohtani's contract is insane. I think that's crazy. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Yep, exactly.
I think, and I don't know about you, I think they need to I think they should probably put 2 kinds of caps on deferrals. It's the amount you can defer on one player's contract and the number of deferred contracts you could have at the same time. I think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be some guardrails. Yeah, if there's not guardrails, it's just going to, next thing you know, Cohen might just turn around and start deferring all this money and he just buys Pittsburgh and Kansas City and brings them in as the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you look at this and it's like nothing changes with a cap from Odd Villain. Guys will just be paid less with a cap. And I'd be tight if I was Paul Skeens or Ellie De La Cruz or something, because look, when you have a salary floor that equals the accountability for shitty owners, salary cap equals an excuse to demonize big markets. And I think all of that is true. And also, I said there was never going to be a cap. I mean, Keith, if we're being honest, the luxury tax is so punitive. It is a de facto soft cap because I know the Dodgers, they signed Ohtani and they're like, we don't care for 10 years. We're not going to care about going over thresholds or anything. But the luxury tax threshold has definitely affected the way the Yankees do business post George Steinbrenner. It's affected the Red Sox. They fully reset. It's affected the Cubs. I mean, you're talking about Boston, New York, and Chicago, three of the biggest markets in the world, operating differently simply because of the luxury tax. And you're telling me that that's not at least a soft cap like what the NBA has?
Yeah, it's a soft cap with just another name.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's Mr. Nobody saying it. It's a soft cap. Odd Villain saying how many teams are realistically going to go over the Cohen tax? Like fucking 3, maybe. Yeah, the Cubs are fake spenders. They spend money, but they're broke ballers. Like that's the kind of thing. You just look at it with the Cubs with Imanaga, right? The Cubs declined the option on Imanaga, who started off the season great for the first half. He was not good in the second half. I think he pitched like a 4.37 ERA on the season. But when you look at the money he was getting, Keith, Imanaga was being paid appropriately for the type of pitcher he is, with both his floor and his ceiling. The fact that they're getting out from his deal so that they could spend money elsewhere is crazy, considering that they were a playoff team. Like, they shouldn't have to get out from his money because now they have to replace that pitcher in the rotation. So I think it's very odd that, you see teams operate like this and you think that the problem is the 3 teams that spend money. I don't know. I just think that, the Mets, the Dodgers, and I guess you kind of lump the Yankees in there. The Phillies spend a lot of money. The Padres spend a lot of money. Like, nope. I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think there's any issue. I think you have to get the Pittsburgh Pirates to spend some money. I think, look, I want the Mets. I'm happy as a Mets fan that Tarek Skubal is probably going to get traded, or at the very least is going to walk at the end of the year, because the Mets need a player like Skubal. But Detroit should have no problem paying Skubal. He's the perfect player for them. He's going to win 2 Cy Youngs. He's led them to back-to-back playoff appearances. And Detroit is not a tiny city and it's not a tiny market. They should have no problem paying him. That's bad for baseball, not the Dodgers.
Yeah, the only thing that's really screwed baseball is the TV rights, the regional TV deals, and that's really screwed up baseball. So the guys that had that money, it's kind of like when the Mets thought they had Madoff money. It's exactly what these teams are dealing with now, that they don't have that money coming in, or the regional sports networks are just dying on them. What do you have? SNY now is a big one. Yes. TBS, Superstation, whatever those big ones are, that's all you have now. You don't have like these little ones really anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point. But it's like Armand brings this up, and it's Pirates have never had $100 million payroll. Never. The closest they came was 2016 at $99 million. We also talked about it a couple weeks ago. The last time they gave a free agent multiple years was Ivan Nova in like 2018 or something like that. Like, that's crazy. You can't go a decade or nearly a decade without giving out a multiple year deal to a free agent. And again, like, there are different things about market size that is true, but these owners are not poor. And every one of these owners does get the revenue sharing money from the teams that spend over the luxury tax and from the national TV contracts. Basically, they're getting $100 million before they sell a ticket, before they sell merch, before they sell a beer or a hot dog. They've got $100 million. So for teams to have like a $40 million payroll, that's insane.
If you can afford a baseball team or you can afford any sports market team, like a big sports team like that, you should have to be able to afford putting a real team on the field.
Right.
That's
what I've always said.
There's no reason for it. So it's just a luxury or a status symbol that you own a team.
Yeah, I think that's
if you can't, what it should be, maybe they don't have a floor, but if you can't hit a certain amount for 3 years in a row, then we're going to have to look at forcing you to sell a team. Remember when the MLB didn't want Cohen to own the Dodgers before he bought the Mets, and they turned him down too because they were afraid he was going to spend too much money as that owner. So if you're going to be worried about people spending too much money, you got to worry about teams spending no money.
Yeah. And they did the same thing to Mark Cuban as well when he tried to, I think he put in a bid to buy the Cubs, and they were like, no, we don't want that kind of money in the game. Like, what? So many good comments here. People after my own heart. Odd Villain saying, billionaire crying broke is tone deaf and bad for the game. Miss me with that shit, please. Armand, thank you for the correction. Ivan Nova was the last multiple year contract signed by the Pirates, but that was in 2016. So it has been a decade. I said 2018. Ethan KL saying the Athletics' most expensive contract before Severino was Eric Chavez. Like, it just goes to show you like how bad, how poorly some of these teams operate. Odd saying wiping tears with that competitive share money is nasty work. And Jeff Cohen's spot on. They'll make more money, the owners will, with a winning team. And I do think Armand is right here. A certain percentage of revenue sharing should be spent on player payroll in the next CBA agreement. I think that that's very, very important. And Ethan saying, if you can demonstrate you can invest in your team actively, trying to make it a competitive, if you can't demonstrate that you can invest in your team actively, trying to make it a competitive product, you need to sell. I think that's really what it comes down to, Keith. I think, and I don't know if we're going to see this, but I think this is the kind of trade-off that and this will be a much bigger topic of conversation as we head into next offseason. But the writing is on the wall here for a work stoppage. And I think if you're going to talk about taking away some deferments and things that we've already talked about, I think Armand is right here with a certain number of the money that these other teams, these small market teams get, needs to be spent on player payroll. I know a few years ago when they did the CBA, it said it needed to go into the team. And the way some of these teams have invested it is in infrastructure and analytics departments. And for teams like the Rays, I think that's been honest and it's worked out. But for teams like the Pirates, you see them just spinning their wheels and not spending any money and not getting any better and not being competitive. I think now the other owners have to wise up and say, look, if we're going to pay money into a pool that you get from, you have to show us in salary that you're trying to be better. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I don't think, to me, if I was on the side of the players union, to me, that would be a non-negotiable. And that's something that I would go to war with, like with regards to, I think that I would go into a strike on something like that because it's crazy. I mean, you guys are pulling out all of the stops here. Like Armand saying the White Sox have never given out $100 million contract. The biggest contract they ever gave out was Andrew Benintendi, 5 years, $75 million. I mean, Keith, we're talking about the Mets gave a $100 million contract out to Beltran, right? I think Beltran was maybe the first guy that got over $100 million from the Mets. I mean, that's 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I don't know. Do you think we're getting, do you think this is the case? Game for War says that's why there won't be baseball till 2028. Do you think we'll miss an entire season?
I don't think so, because I think baseball also knows if there's a year gone that they're going to lose more young fans, and baseball is eventually going to kill itself and die.
I agree with that. I think we'll see a work stoppage. I think it's going to be messy. I think it's going to be ugly. I think they're going to fight and duke it out in the media, and I think it's going to be awful. But I think we will have a representative baseball season, whether it's 162 games or slightly less or whatever. I do think we're going to see a baseball season because baseball is actually popular again. It is on the upswing. You saw the numbers for the World Series. You saw the excitement around this World Series. Truly an international event when you look at, players like Vladdy and Shohei being involved, and then a team from Canada, the only Canadian team right now being involved. It's become such a big deal, and it's growing. I know it looks like it's stagnated, but some of the changes that we were critical of in terms of pitch clock and things, it's working, it's growing. And I think that they can't, well, listen, they might, but I think baseball is shooting themselves in the foot if they squander a year.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the of NHL, and after the '94 season, the Rangers had the whole country and basically the whole Canada and the US like ready into hockey. People that weren't really into hockey were into hockey, and then they had the lockout the next year, and it just killed all the momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there was two lockouts. Wasn't there another lockout in hockey like right after the 2000s?
Yeah.
And that one time, was go ahead.
Yeah, but by that time, hockey was already still going on that downswing. In the 90s is when when the NBA and the NHL were the hottest, that's when they could have just kept moving. It went from being a number 4 sport to like a number 6 sport now.
Yeah. Because the lockout that happened, and what was, I don't know if the second lockout, the one where they missed the entire season in the NHL. What year was that? 2005. Thank you. Yeah. In 2005, because I'm not a big hockey guy, but a lot of people said, like people on both sides of the argument, even people who didn't want to lose an NHL season, said that there was it was unavoidable because basically they didn't set it up after the first lockout. Like they didn't get it right after the one that happened in 95. So when it came to 2005, it was almost like they had to lose a season because there was nothing else they could do. There was no way to get on common ground, and the revenue was in the tank. And you're looking at what I guess could happen if you don't just get together for the good of the sport that you both want. Like that's what's crazy. It's owners and players, man. Ultimately, you just should want there to be baseball.
Yeah, you want to make money. That's it. The owners make a ton of money. The players make a ton of money. Just make your money. Just in case you can't make all the money, make 75% of all the money then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is a great one from Armand. 50 million viewers combined between the U.S., Canada, and Japan for Game 7 of the World Series. I mean, that is not a sport that is in trouble. That is a lot of eyes on your sport. Keith, we kind of teased it a couple times. Before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about the Queens Baseball Convention, which is coming up on December 13th at the 4 Points Sheraton in Flushing, where it's been for the last several years. Really good venue for it. I think especially like every year, the work that you put in to make the venue even better and even more logistically sound. It's a beautiful space, but the work that you guys have done to make it really fit the QBC year over year has been something that's been really cool to see. Of course, it's something Jeff Cohen said it before. It's the highlight of the offseason. I've got the signed poster from last year behind me. The other ones are just above it. So, it's something that I look forward to every year to be a part of. Very happy that you have me and have Ibby and the show a part of it every year. For people who may not have been there before and may not be fully aware, Give me the full details about this year, and then we can go into some specifics about things that maybe are new or whatever.
All right, so we'll start off with the players. We got Jesse Orozco coming in. He does a panel, and he'll be doing a signing too. Roger Clark is going to host that panel. Roger, he loves anything 86 Mets, anything 69 Mets, so he's the perfect person for that. He brings out the excitement, and almost every time that we have somebody that is hosted by Roger, they're like, "Oh my God, that was so great! Can I come back again and have Roger as my moderator?" And we do. The next one, we're actually doing a live version of the Terry Collins show, and Tom Hallion is going to come in as my ass is in the jackpot and have their rematch from that famous game when Syndergaard hit the Dodgers. Terry's producer is going to host that. Usually I would take John and Ibby to do something like that, but I feel like I need to give John a little bit of a break this year, not overwork him. Then we have, for the first time in years, we're bringing in a current Met, and that current Met's going to be Brett Beatty. I know people are 50-50 on him. I think he turned around a lot of people towards the end of the season. I also think that when people get to know him, it might be like that whole Nimmo QBC bump after we had Nimmo at the QBC. People ended up loving him, and then became one of their favorite players. So they're all doing signings. And
let me ask you this, because it's likely not going to happen, but I'm curious to know if there would be a contingency, because I'm pretty sure Beatty's going to be on the team, right? Like, I don't see Brett Beatty getting traded. I think Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna, much more likely candidates from the major league roster of the young players to be traded. What would happen if Brett Beatty was traded? Like, do you have a backup, or would it just be an unfortunate thing? Because, yeah, like Truman was sharing a brain, right? As I was saying, he's like, Beatty would be wearing a Tigers uniform. Would he still be welcomed to talk about the experience if he wanted to be there? Like, how would that work? Have you ever been in that situation before?
That's why we've stayed away from current players in the past. But the good thing is we have a working relationship with Coaches Collectibles. Mm-hmm. Coaches Collectibles is the guy, Dom. He's the one that is providing the players for us. He's our conduit now. And if Beatty gets traded and doesn't want to come back to be a part of the Mets Fan Fest or say goodbye to the Mets fans, I'm sure we can get somebody equal to Beatty or maybe even better than Beatty. My theory, like years ago when Keith Hernandez had to have the back surgery and he had to pull out of the QBC, what did we do? We got Darryl Strawberry. We had to pay a little more. We had to pay a little more money for him than what we were doing for Keith. But you have to over deliver when something happens to. Uh-oh.
You're still here. Your video just cut out, but we can hear you.
All right. Oh, cool. At least that's working. Yeah. So with that, we always got to try to over deliver,
Yeah, no, I figured it would be something like that. There you go. You're back. I figured it would be something like that, which is why I didn't feel like it was inappropriate to put you on the spot with a question like that, just because, there is a real possibility. We were joking around or rather bringing it up as a point of comparison with like the Jets and the Mets, where, the Jets just traded two of their most popular players in season. And, you're getting into the trade season, and we all think the Mets are going to be active in the trade market. And we know Brett Beatty will be a name that will come up. Do I think the Mets will be reluctant to trade him? I do. Do I think it's impossible that they trade him? I don't, because I do think if there's a situation where it's, a guy like Scooble, let's say, and Detroit's like, we want Brett Beatty. You're not going to let that be the reason why you don't trade, for arguably the best pitcher in the sport. So just something I wanted to bring up, because it's been a couple of years since you've had an active player. There have been some more current players, like last year Reyes was there, and R.A. Dickey a couple of years ago, and somebody who is not a player recently, but obviously Terry Collins was there 2 years ago as well. Like when you start to look at, guys who are closer to the game, that's one thing, but guys who are on the team, it is always a risky proposition, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Dom has a good stable of guys that we could always pull from if we have to. And knowing that Dom has our back with that, I'm not worried about it. I'm like, if we'll say that Beatty gets pulled, do we switch him in with the Vientos? Do we switch him in with an Alvarez? Would people want to see an Alvarez? Would people want to see Vientos? I'll have to offer a refund of the tickets if people don't want to see any of them. But I think any of the current players that are on that level, people would be happy to see and get to actually talk.
Yeah. What are some of the other things? I know it's an all-day event, and it's not just the panels are great. Hearing from these players is terrific. And you're right. Whether it's, Roger Clark does such a great job. Of course, he works at New York One. Lori Rubinson has hosted panels before from WFAN. She's terrific. The panels are one thing. But then there's also, it's not just the panels and the autographs. Like I remember before he rose to OMG sign fame, J-Mac Customs was at the QBC selling his custom cut signs. And I met him there and didn't even realize it until I met him the following year that I had met him at the QBC. His stuff was great. We talked for a bunch. The Mets go on the run. OMG happens. I see him at a game out here in LA, buy one of the pins. We start, we become friends. And then it's not until the QBC the following year, which was last offseason, where I was like, oh my God, dude, this is where I met you. I just completely forgot. So you kind of never know who you're going to run into when it comes to, other things outside of the panels as well.
Yeah, we have panels, we have vendors. Usually the Syracuse Mets, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, the Cyclones, they all send people in with they don't all send people. The Cyclones, because they're closer, they'll send a table in with usually either Pee Wee or Sandy, the Seagull. They all try to send a swag that we could do giveaways. The Mets, as of right now, are even going to have a sales table, and they might be doing something with us this year too. I haven't really said anything yet about it. I don't know what yet. That's all in the ether right now. It could be nothing. I just reached out on Olive Branch and asked them if they wanted to bring a sales table, because they also give us giveaways too every year, and we have people in the organization that are very supportive of us at the same time. So we try to help them out as they try to help us out. Like they don't really need our help, but it helps that it looks like they're more fan friendly, because one of the knocks last season was that weren't as fan friendly to the season ticket holders as they've been in the past. Yeah, we have the vendors. We usually have Catch no longer has their restaurant anymore. They're just doing catering. So they're now Grand Affair, and they're going to be their catering again. And it's just a good time. You get to hang out with people that you can't usually hang out with at a baseball game, because everybody's all spread out, but you might hang out with them at a outdoor parking lot. Now you're indoors, you can hang out, sit down, relax, enjoy entertainment throughout the whole day. Panels, games, vendors, you never know who might show up too. So
yeah, there's been in the past where, and you never know how people will show up. I'll always go back to this because and I know Terry Collins was there with SNY last year. He's going to be back doing a live version of his show this year, like you already mentioned. But the first year he was on, where he was a guest being interviewed, he was there at 7:00 in the morning when you guys were first setting up. And what time does it start? Is it 10 a.m.? Am I right on
10 a.m. Yeah, 10 a.m. So doors open at 9:30.
Doors open at 9:30. Event really kicks off at 10 a.m. 7 a.m. Terry Collins is down there having coffee and having a bagel and BSing with you and the staff. I come down at about 9 a.m. and to get acclimated and everything. He's still down there just BSing. We're just talking baseball, just hanging out. And then like he can't stop raving about it. And obviously that was 2 years ago, going on 3 now. And it's 3 years in a row where he's been back in some capacity. And I just remember him saying like, and he was there before his panel, obviously not taking away from other people's panels, but he came back down. He was just talking with fans, hanging out in the back, talking with vendors. And like, you just never know like where else you're going to get the opportunity to talk baseball to, a guy who's managed the team to the World Series. Joe DeMayo, there's a chance Joe DeMayo shows up. How crazy would that be? But here's the thing. He did ask earlier. He said, Keith, what will I be doing at the QVC?
So there is a slot for Mets content creators that we have. And I have Ibby and Sap. That's supposed to be their slot. We haven't finalized anything yet, but that's their slot. Maybe they'll throw some pity on you, Joe, and bring you on. Maybe if I unban you from the QBC.
Keith and Joe have this, if you're just tuning in, a very tongue-in-cheek adversary relationship, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I mean, like it's a great event. It's something that I've been a part of. This will be the 5th year in a row that I've been a part of this. And it's just, it's wonderful. It's so much fun. A lot of people from, this, like, that are commenters and viewers here on this show, I've met in person because of the QBC, whether they had been going to the QBC before or they found out about the QBC because of our relationship, whatever the case may be. It's like, I would have never had the opportunity to meet some of these people in person were it not for the QBC. And I think that's the other thing too, where we can disagree. We can talk about the importance of Antoine Richardson as the first base coach or the lack thereof, but it's great to, in December, come out there and rub elbows with other Mets fans when it's cold and, the year hasn't turned over yet. And you're just like, man, I really starved for baseball. The QBC provides it. I know you've talked about it, Keith, in the past. Like, well, you also experimented with having the QBC at different times of the year, but it's been pretty steadfast in December for, I think, the last 5 years. Do you feel like this is the best time of year to do it? Has it really settled into that?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like January is always a chance of snow. And that one year we got snowed out, and I'd rather have better weather. It's before the holidays. People aren't tired after the holidays. There's no football like really going on, like playoff pushes and stuff like that. So people are more invested in just hanging out. And what else is there to do besides hanging out on a Sunday, like first or second Sunday in December? We're basically taking your holiday party and we're being your holiday party.
That's true. That is absolutely true. Odd Villain saying, I live close to that place, talking about the 4 Point Sheridan where the QBC is going to be this year. I'm going to go. And then said, never been somehow. Odd, you should definitely come out. Which leads me to my next point. Oh, Armand says, I might go to the QBC this year. Keith, what's the deal with tickets? I know certain tickets tend to sell out really fast because there's ticket packages that come with stuff and VIP experiences. So where are tickets out right now?
All right. So we're totally sold out on the VIP blue tables. That's the tables that are like right up next to the stage. We have, I think, 14 or 15 orange tickets left, which is the orange VIP tickets. Jump on to queensbaseballconvention.com, click buy tickets. I'll break down all the ticket packages for you. Usually get with the VIPs, you get autographs, you get inscriptions. I think I think you get inscriptions with this one. Everything's a blur now, but with the orange seats, you get the first 4 rows reserved chairs. That those, the first 4 rows, one you can have a seat there. They're not numbered, but when you get there, you claim your chair. That's your chair, and anything else is all general admission.
And if you were to get a general admission, does that come with any of the autographs, or then is that like a la carte where you buy it separately? Like how, just the breakdown there. I don't want you to like go through again. People can go to queensbaseballconvention.com, look at what tickets work for them and how the breakdown, might be best suited for their individual needs. But just like as an overview, if they went for just like a baseline ticket, what are they getting?
So a baseline ticket. Now, I've been trying to explain this to people for the last couple of weeks, actually, since the tickets went on sale. You get general admission. You get a chance to have an autograph from Jesse Orosco. If you come late, you're not going to get the autograph, but you get a free autograph with the $69.99 plus fees and taxes. That's for you to get in the door. That's you get to go meet Orosco. But there's no other general admission until people started badgering me about why do I have to get an Orosco autograph? I'm like, I'm giving it to you for free. You're not paying for it. It's part of the thing. So I finally had enough yesterday, and I created another general admission ticket for the same exact price, but without the Orosco autograph, just to make people happy.
So you're telling me that there are some people that didn't want the autograph as part of it?
Yeah. I've gotten his autograph so many times. Is there a Beatty package, or is there I'm like, yeah, there's packages, but you have to go into it. It's not going to be
right.
Why? So if I don't want the Orosco autograph, is it cheaper to get in? I'm like, no, it's still $69.99 plus fees and taxes to get in. It's $90 to get into New York Comic-Con without fees and taxes, and you're not guaranteed to see any panels. You're not guaranteed to meet anybody and pay extra for autographs because they might not have enough tickets. And then you're just walking around to shop at that point. So you're paying money to go into New York Comic-Con to go shop.
Yeah, and the same is true for and I had a great experience working at it this year at Fanatics Fest. It's a great event. I've never been to Comic-Con, but I've heard good things about it. But I had a great experience working at Fanatics Fest, but it's also a similar thing where it's like you pay the admission, and then anything that you want to do on top of that in terms of like getting autographs and meeting individuals, whether that be WWE guys or, whatever, your favorite baseball player, it's extra. So yeah, to have a cheaper ticket in the door come with a autograph guaranteed is, I don't know why you'd poo-poo that, but yeah.
Yeah, it baffles me. And like every year I love doing the QBC. I love seeing like the day of everybody's so happy, but sometimes the build up, I am surprised that I'm not whiter with my hair right now or my beard.
Odd Villain saying Mets fans are hilarious, following it up by saying I've never seen Jesse pitch and I'd still take his autograph over Beatty. Oh man. And Joe saying it's Keith, it's your fault because you're just a people pleaser. That's what it is.
That's totally me.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, Keith, I mean, couple things. We'll get out of here in a second, but the QBC, I can't speak enough good about it. I've been a part of it for 5 years, and the show has been a part of it for 3 or 4 now. And, in some capacity, whether it's me and Ibby or the show being officially part of it. And it's great, but my involvement in it has nothing to do with the fact that I think it's great. Like, it is just something that Mets fans should go out and do, to hang with other Mets fans, to hear from players that you love, or in Odd Villain's case or my case, players that you don't love, like Brett Beatty. But all jokes aside, like, you still want to hear from the players that have had experiences coming through the door of the team that you root for. I know, was it last year? You talk about like how people fell in love with Brandon Nimmo, but I think it was last year, the tenor changed so much for Greg Jeffries, right? Where it was like, this is a guy who had a mixed bag of his time as a New York Met in terms of how the fans treated him and how the fans reacted to him, and sometimes how he reacted to the fans. But he was welcomed with open arms. It was a great interview, and he had a great time.
And the way he was talking, the way he was interacting, I wouldn't be surprised one day if he got a shot, doing some color commentary or doing some in-studio analyst work, because he was really good.
He was
great.
Shocked
that I thought he was going to be a stiff myself, to tell you the truth. And then when he got there and he first met everybody, in the green room and then got up onto the stage, he didn't want to leave right away either. He hung out in the green room afterwards.
Yeah, you see that a lot. I mean, I've had great, baseball conversations in the green room with, Nelson Figueroa and Cliff Floyd and Ray Knight, and people who have been there. It's just like, it's awesome. It's an awesome time. So I'm happy to be there again. December 13th is a Saturday, starts at 10 a.m. It goes till what time?
It should go to about 6. The last panel is Beatty, should be like 5:30, 6 o'clock, because we always run a little long. So I try to give a little bit of a buffer. But Beatty's going to be the last panel and the last signing. So that way people can just go to him and relax and then decompress a little bit.
Yeah. So, it is an all day thing, but in the best way possible where, again, you're not, hit over the head. Like there are other panels in between. I know Mark Healy's coming back with the state of the Mets, which, Ibby is going to be on, and Aunt Rivera from Subway to Shea. Who else?
Lori
am I
Rubinson.
missing? Lori Rubinson. That's going to be a great panel. That's always fun. And there are other things mixed in. So you hear from the players, you hear from some of your favorite content creators, you hear from some, the TV and radio personalities, things like that. It's awesome. And again, you'll have some downtime. Food's always good from Catch. What's their new identity now?
Grand Affair.
Grand Affair. It's great. Ibby checking in right on cue, just saying, Keith. And odd villain with a suggestion. I think he's joking, but Ibby, he says, Keith, he says you should have Bobby Bonilla next time.
I've tried.
Is it a no from Bobby Bo's camp, or?
It was during one of the years where it was like, I think I actually had a whole thing where I came up with an idea for the Mets where they should have gave away fake $1 million bills with Bobby Bonilla on Bobby Bonilla Day and have him show up. And that was the same year. And it didn't work out. But
okay.
I think he was busy. But he also was a little afraid that Mets fans would boo him and make not have a good time. I'm like, that's not what the QBC is about. We're about celebrating the Mets players. Even if it's a player that we weren't 100% sold on in the past, when you come in, tell us your experiences, tell us, what the fans meant to you, then you become beloved, which is the funniest thing.
Yeah. I think I understand somebody like him having some hesitation, but you're spot on. I mean, we've talked, off air, I won't bring up the names and stuff like that, but we've talked about other players more recent who, are a little hesitant. And it's like, listen, man, everybody's got a story to tell. And if you're honest and you talk about your experience and, even if there was some, headbutting with the fan base, you're coming back and you're showing love to a fan base who, ultimately just wants to support everybody that has a jersey on. So, it's a great event. I can't say enough good about it. Looking forward to seeing you in person. Looking forward to meeting up with all the Mets fans. Odd villain saying, why would we boo him? Come on with the laughing emoji. But yeah, no, looking really forward to it. And I appreciate you. Keith, jumping on and, pinch hitting, talking a little bit of Mets, talking some QBC. Is there anything that we didn't get to about the Queens Baseball Convention that you want to bring up?
Tickets and information on queensbaseballconvention.com. If you guys want to see some stuff that we've done in the past, go onto our YouTube page. Just put Queens Baseball Convention in. We have panels from past years. You can see the evolution of how we were at McFadden's the first year till the last couple of years at 4 Points to Sheridan, and how much we've changed production wise and how much more professional we've gotten from, hey, we should really bluff the Mets into doing a fan fest. Yeah, sure. We're not going to do one. Freak. That means we have to do one. And then I had to throw one together with Mets Police, Darren from the 7 Line, and my partner Dan. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing after that. Now it's just me and Dan, but this year I've taken the reins a little more. Dan's gone to the back a little bit, doing more back of the house. I'm doing more front of the house, and we're trying to just do the best show every year for everybody and most enjoyment. So go to queensbaseballconvention.com. Also go to coachescollectiblesnewyork.com for Dom, because he's a working partner with us that helps us with the talent. he has a lot of signings too. You might actually see me helping him out every now and then at his stuff. So you might have saw me at the David Wright when he had the David Wright signing. So you might have saw me there too. Hit me up on Media Goon on X and Instagram, QB Convention on X and Instagram, and read themediagoon.com.
Perfect. Well said. This is a good one, man. I like Armand pulling this up. Mike Hampton would be interesting to see why he liked the Colorado school system. But I mean, listen, man, before Mike Hampton left for those Colorado schools, he pitched the game of his life for the Mets. So, I mean, that's a guy where, you look at, he had some good times before he came to the Mets. And I know he was only with the Mets for a very brief run before signing with Colorado, but you could argue that the best part of Mike Hampton's career was a few months in Flushing. So, that's another good one. And I think, as you do this more and more, and is this, correct me if I'm wrong, year 11 of the QBC?
Yeah. If you throw in like one year we got snowed out with the blizzard, and then 1 year with COVID where I had to do it on virtually.
Okay.
Yeah. It's something like that, but it's been pretty consistent.
But yeah, I mean, with that and some of the other smaller pop-up QBC events that you do, when you had the lunch with Keith Hernandez and the lunch with Howie Rose, things like that, you've, not that you don't want to hear from, or Met fans don't want to hear from these people over and over again, but you've kind of hit on all the big stars from 86. And, you've now had a lot of people who were there in 2006, certainly not everybody, starting to get into some players from 2015, starting to get more into, some current players too. So I think as you do that, as it continues to grow, as it continues to branch out, I do think some of these other names of the Mets have a great history that it's nice to see, Steve and Alex Cohen embrace and retire more numbers and invite people back and make good on promises that people like Joan Payson made, and things like that. But it's also nice to see, at the level of the QBC, going out and getting people like, a Greg Jeffries and entertaining the idea of a Bobby Bonilla and a Mike Hampton and things like that, because, the Mets don't have a lot of, doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of great players who have come through and a lot of great stories to tell. So I think that the work you guys do and being willing to, take flyers on some guys who maybe would be a little less popular is also great too. I think it's all great.
Thanks. And again, I put out what I want to see as a fan for my fellow fans. So if I'm going to be entertained by it, I hope that everybody else is going to be entertained by it. And I feel like I have a pretty good gauge on that.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you do have a pulse of what, people would want to see. And sometimes, again, like maybe the thing that they didn't know they wanted to see that turns out to be something great. So, Keith, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you again, not only talking QBC, talking Mets, pinch hitting for Ibby, all that stuff along the way. The show's gone 2 hours, guys, so we're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 5:30 Eastern. Ibby will be back in the house. We'll be talking more about the free agency. We'll be right in the thick of the GM meetings, so anything could happen. So you want to stay tuned. Remember to follow us across social media at Till Mets Do Us Part. You'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Substack, Blue Sky, all of those places. The place where you're watching us right now, the YouTube channel, best place to interact with the show. If you subscribe, turn notifications on, you will never, ever, ever miss an opportunity to know when we are going live. You'll get the alerts. And in the offseason, that is so much more important, because if a big free agent signing happens, a big trade goes down, we'll try our best, sometimes same day, sometimes within an hour. At the very least, within the next day, we're dropping an episode. We're talking about it. We're talking to all of you. So for Keith Blacknick, the Media Goon, I'm John Sapanaro. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. We will see you next week. Peace.